Right, I suppose we should get this started. There'll be a lot of you here that are just here to heckle me, right? So if we get out of the way first. Some of you at the back there, I can see you're going to have to heckle pretty loud. Just don't throw any objects if you can help it. Today's talk, a little bit about the team, about myself. For some of you guys, it just made a bit of interest about what the Red Devils do and who we are. For a few more of you, you might want to start your own display team. And I'm going to go into how you can start a display team within the BPA and sort of the things you might have to think of while conducting displays. A little introduction, my name's Sergeant Dean Walton. A lot of you guys will know me as Waldo. I'm the Team Sergeant Major for the British Army's freefall display team, the Red Devils. Thanks, I was expecting a round of applause. But a little bit about myself. I joined the parachute regiment when I was 17. And then as part of your parachute regiment training, you have to go to jump school at the end. I did my first ever parachute descent in 2004. It was a static line jump out of the back of a C-130 Hercules at Weston-on-the-Green. Some of you may have jumped there in the past. And yeah, what an experience. I'd like to be able to explain to you what happened. I don't actually remember. 1 minute I was on the back of the Hercules, the next minute I was on some grass with some RAF guy shouting at me because I did none of my drills. It was an experience, and I got the taste for jumping then. Since then, I've conducted about 60, maybe more, low-level parachute descents with the battalions, and I've pretty much done that on every continent across the globe, jumping with some foreign militaries of lots of different platforms. I've also served 4 operational tours of Afghanistan. They took a few years when we were busy out there, and then I became a instructor at the Infantry Training Centre in Catterick. Whilst I was there in 2013, I got offered the chance to conduct my AFF training. It was a military-run expedition, and it was out in Seville, Spain. We went out there, we had an absolute great time. The students on the course all qualified and got their A licence, but more importantly, the instructors we had out there, who were all BPA instructors, really made the course for us. Some of the instructors I'm sure you'll know, we had Bryn Chafe, Ray Armstrong, Steve Saunders. They really made the course. And for me, that was my first introduction to civilian instructors, because I joined the Army so young, and a sort of civilian sport outside of what I was used to. After my first jump, absolutely fell in love with it. And then I became your weekend jumper. I was up in the northeast at the time, was jumping a lot at Peterlee, also jumping at Skydive St George. And I was doing your weekend jumps. That's when I got the chance to become a camera flyer and sort of excelled from there. In 2016 though, I was offered the chance to give Red Devil selection a try. I went down, did the 2-week selection. Luckily for me, I passed. Some of them may regret that decision now, but I joined the team in 2016. In 2017, I passed display clearance, and that was when I did my first display season. Just completed that the last 12 months, and now I'm moving into the 2018 season. So today, we're going to talk about history of the team, the role of Red Devils, what's our role in the civilian skydiving world and within defence, the team itself, how the team operates, what goes into a display season and the displays, becoming a Red Devil, how do you become a Red Devil, and my first display season, which was last year. I'm going to show you now some of the clips that we've taken throughout the 2017 season. Thank you. So that was our 2017 video. We try and get one out every year. We're going to talk now briefly about the team history. For some of you that don't know, where did parachuting originate? Well, it started in the 1930s. It was a military concept. It was the Russians that came up with the idea, that they had this idea that they could move a mass amount of troops relatively quickly and drop them relatively anywhere in the world within the distance of what their aircraft could fly. It was during the 1930s at a military exhibition. There was a load of German army guys there, and they thought, this might come in handy in the next few years. The Germans were the first ever nationality to deploy paratroopers operationally, and that was at the start of World War II. The operation was into Crete, and although it wasn't a success, Allied forces took notice of it, and each of the Allied countries decided that they wanted an airborne division. Winston Churchill himself ordered the creation of an airborne force, and his idea was that that force would be used to take back occupied Europe during World War II, which we did, and we won, yes. After that, though, after the World War II, as materials started to modernise and we were using composite materials and new aerodynamics were brought in, parachuting itself started to change. It was the US military that brought in the idea of these steerable parachutes. They were still round canopies. They weren't the ram air canopies that you see today, but they were steerable, and I use that in the loosest term. You could go left, you could go right, and land it in a rough area. At that point in the 1960s, sports parachuting had started to be introduced into the United Kingdom. The BPA had formed, but it didn't have really any authority over the UK sports parachuting as it does now. There were a few sports parachuting centres. They were predominantly in the south of the country, but the leading team at the time was a competition team from 22 SAS. This is probably because they had access to the equipment and they had the funds to jump. There was a young officer, Lieutenant Gardner, from the parachute regiment who thought, well, hang on a minute, we're the parachute regiment, surely we should be having some sort of impact on sports parachuting in the UK. He then came up with the idea that he was going to create a competition team, which he did, and the Red Devils was given were given their name. The reason we got the name the Red Devils, it was given to us by the Germans in World War II because of the maroon berets that we wore on our heads and because we caused them lots of dramas behind enemy lines. In 1964, though, Lieutenant Gardner had the idea that he could use sports parachuting to promote not only the army but also the parachute regiment. He created a display team. They didn't know if there was going to be any taste for it in the public. They put it out there, and they actually got 50 bookings in their first year. They were able to complete about 31 of those bookings that they had. They were for public military events and also private military events. And it was a relative success. By success, no Red Devils were killed, no spectators were killed. However, there were a few land-offs, which I'm sure was amusing to everyone. And this then went through the 60s. As you see there, the aircraft you see, that was the Red Devils' first aircraft, Valkyrie. It was actually sponsored by a tobacco company. They gave the team the aircraft, but the equipment they were using was really at its infancy. There was a sports parachute manufacturer in the UK, and they said they wanted to sponsor the team with the canopy you see up there. That was called a Scorpion. Fortunately, I never jumped that canopy, but guys that I have said it was absolutely terrible, so the team instead decided that they were going to buy their own kit. So if you came to the Red Devils, not only were you coming to the team, you knew you were going to have to buy your own parachute. And a lot of the stuff they were using was ex-US military equipment. And then in 1979, the team became formally established. The Army said, right, we're going to use you as a tool. And then the Red Devils have held that title up until today. As of April 1st this year, though, the Army is going to formalise 3 other display teams, the RSC Silver Stars, the Remy Lightning Bolts, and the PWR Tigers. And we look forward to working with them in the coming years. The team role, why do we have a display team? Well, there's a few functions, really. Predominantly, we're a recruiting tool. We go out there and we recruit, not just for the parachute regiment, but for the British Army as a whole. We go to the shows, we obviously jump in, people see us, and then they'll come talk to us. And we're there to encourage young men and women that if they'd like a career in the military, to come give it a go, and we can help answer any questions they may have. We also obviously hold a role in defence. We're a military asset, and we get used for international defence key engagements. Similar to what the Red Arrows do, if the UK want to have a representation somewhere abroad, say an international air show, we get a call from the Foreign Office and they say, can you go and jump into this air show, and we'd like you to do it on behalf of the UK. And thirdly, what we always want to try and remember is we are a BPA recognised display team. We represent UK sports parachuting on an international stage. So internationally, we're saying, look, this is what the BPA, the British Parachute Association, has to offer in displays, but also we like to think that we're recruiting future skydivers. We may go to shows, there may be people there that don't necessarily want to join the military. However, we always get lots of questions on, I'd love to skydive, how can I do that? We tell them about TANDEMS, we tell them about AFF. So we're keeping the sport alive by getting more people into UK skydiving. So the team structure, how's it laid out? There's a few abbreviations in here that we love to use in the Army. I'm going to explain them. At the top, we have OC, that stands for Officer Commanding. So we have one officer who's in charge of the team. Currently, that sits as a captain, and that's Captain Joseph Palmer. And that's the one officer we have there. Underneath that, we have 15 what we call other ranks, ORs. Myself, I'm the Team Sergeant Major. I sit as the OC's second in command. I'm a sergeant, and I'm the only senior rank on the team. After that, we have corporals down to privates. We have one FTRS post, that's full-time reservist. That is a guy that used to be in the military, did 29 years regular service, and had been on the Red Devils during his time. He then left the military and has come back to us on a full-time contract for 2 years. And we have one reservist. He comes from our 4th Battalion, the Parachute Regiment. He's there to recruit potential reservist soldiers into the military. As we see there, TSM, Team Sergeant Major. Underneath me, it starts to break out. On the right here, we have Team Rigger and Rigging 2IC. We do a lot of our rigging in-house. However, some of it we do source externally. But mainly what the rigging does, he ensures safety and equipment management on the team. But more importantly, R&D, research and development. A lot of the stuff you see in our videos, no one has done it before. The only way we can do that is by building our own equipment to manage that. After that, we have the team leader. Team leader, he oversees and holds the risk for the team. He's a British Parachute Association recognised team leader. He sat his team leader exam, which become more important later. And then after that, we have a jump master. Like you have on any load, no matter where you are at your drop zone, there's always a jump master. The only difference is our jump master has a few more difficult roles than what you'd have at your standard DZ. He coordinates basically as a platoon sergeant would all the other departments on the team. You come to the team, you start as ground crew, and then hopefully after passing display clearance, you become a display jumper. However, that is not your only role in the team. Every member has a different role within the office. It's a full-time job, and we start with tandems. We do over 400 tandems a year. For that to happen, we have to have coordination with the different drop zones that we use. Next, we have camera. All our camera is done internally, and video editing is done internally as well. Next to him is PR, and you see the little line coming off the TSM there. I'm in charge of PR, and I have a guy that works with me on that. It's really important. We do a lot of public relations out there, and we also have a lot of sponsors that we have to keep happy throughout the year. Underneath that, though, sits social media. For us, we were a bit slow on taking up on the social media role. I'm sure many of you here will have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. The team was a little bit slow to acknowledge how important social media is. We do acknowledge it now. There's a guy's role on the team. It's purely social media. As you are well aware, it's such a great avenue for pushing out media content across the globe. Next, we have contracts. Like everything in this world, everything has to be contracted, health and safety, etc., etc. Everything we do is written with a contract, and everything we do is also subject to contract. If we want to put a display in, we can only do so if the contracts they're happy with and we're happy with. Aircraft, massively important. You can't do a parachute jump without an aircraft. Fortunately for us, there's a lot of drop zones across the UK that really support the team. And I know many of you here that jump at different areas around the country. We come along and we interrupt your jump program maybe for an hour, and it can be a bit of a nuisance, and I've had it when I was a fun jumper. But just remember, what we're doing is possibly recruiting future skydivers, and we really appreciate the help we've had throughout the past few years from all the different DZ owners. And then finally, displays. It's what we do, display jumping. We have a displays coordinator, and he makes sure we're not double booked, that we can jump in that area, and if so, we might have to split the jump team and do one display in the south and one display in the north. So request to jump. If there's anyone out there that wants to start a display team, these are some of the points you may have to go through to get your display team off the ground. First of all, you need the request. Request can come in, guy comes into the office, I'd like a display, phone call, email, whatever it is. But you need that initial request. We would like a parachute display. If we're happy and we think we can do the display, the most important thing next is the recce. You need to go out and see that site that they want you to put that display in. When we conduct our recce's, we always have a seasoned jumper on the recce itself, and we'll take a couple of the newer guys to see how a recce's conducted. It's really important to have someone there that knows what they're talking about, because when it comes to us to jump, if the arena is not what they said it's going to be and it's not safe, we won't jump, and it's simple as that. At the end of the day, it is a really dangerous thing, display jumping, and we don't want to have an accident. Then we need clearance to jump. BPA, ATC, air traffic control, and a PME, a public military event. We need to make sure we are clear to jump in that area at the time and date given. Contracts will go out, and it has to be a contracts acceptance. For us to jump into somewhere, we need minimum £5 million public liability, and so will you if you start your own private display teams. Contracts acceptance, are they happy with the contract? Are we happy with the contract? There have been times where in the small print, they're not happy with something we've put in, and we're not happy with something they've put in. If you can't come to an agreement, then unfortunately, without the contract, we can't perform the jump. Aircraft request. Obviously, we borrow aircraft from different drop zones around the country. Can we get an aircraft, and is it going to be viable for where we want to jump? Luckily for us, the DZ owners across the country have been really good with us over the years, and it's not normally an issue. But airfield pickup, not necessarily do we have to take off from a drop zone itself. In fact, more common than not, we'll meet the aircraft at a smaller airfield and get on board in that area. Op order. This is where the JM really starts to earn his money. We have an op order, we try and write it 4 weeks out. Important things on the op order are going to be the time and date, when we're going to be jumping, who's going to be on the jump, what aircraft are we using, who's going to be on the ground crew, what the Met's going to look like. We try and get that from a week out leading up to the jump, and more importantly, timings. Some of the displays we have, one day will be in the south of the country, next day will be in the north of Scotland. We have to work out these timings and allow the road move of the ground crew and the air crew. Rehearsals, everything you do in the military, there's a rehearsal, and we do it the same before every jump. It coordinates we have to have coordination between the jump team and the ground crew at all times. We go through what kind of jump we're going to do. Is it going to be a low show, a mid show, or a high show? And also, more importantly, a lot of the shows we go to, you're going to have VIPs. There may be politicians there may be celebrities, there may be members of the royal family. We need to know who's going to be on the ground and what's going to happen after we land. If it's a live TV event, are we going to land, and do we have to get off the landing area as quick as possible? Or are we going to land, are we going to do a lineup, and who are we meeting after the jump? And then the jump itself. Of all jumps, drop zones, do a woody run, start the day. We do a woody run, exactly the same before we jump. However, sometimes we offset the woody run because there could be a live TV event going on and they don't want us flying overhead at the time. The spot, jump master, is down to him. He decides where we're going to be getting out. Now, if you get the spot wrong at your DZ, where you fun jump, 9 times out of 10, it's not a massive issue. However, when you're doing what we do, landing in a small arena, could be over central London where there are no land-offs. If you get that spot wrong, you can see how it can be a real bad day at the office for us. So the jump master is a really experienced guy. He chooses the spot, and then he briefs the team on board the aircraft where we're going to be getting out. He then coordinates with the stack pilot from the crew team, what the crew are going to be doing, and where they're going to be getting out the aircraft. Jump run. He then decides the jump run and the altitude we're going to be running in at. And then finally, conducting the jump itself. We do the jump, we land, but we always have an after-action review. You should never think that you can't improve on the display that you're providing. Every jump we do, we look at from when we leave the office until we finish the jump itself. Could we have left earlier? Could we have left later? Did we get out the aircraft at the right height? Could we have got a little bit higher? Were people turning too high over the arena? Were people setting up too deep? Every time we jump, we go over the jump itself to always try and better ourselves for the next display. So the season itself, how does it start? If you're looking at starting a display team, you need to do a few of these pre-season checks. First of all, Register with the BPA itself. Also, you need to register with the Civil Aviation Authority. You need to register every display jumper. Now, we do our registration after team training. Every single person that passes display team training registers with the BPA and has it written in their logbook. A registered TL. The TL, at the end of the day, he holds the overall risk for the team. He has to have sat the BPA TL exam. Again, you have to have a TL on your team to be able to operate. Working within the BPA Operations Manual and Team SOPs. Like I said before, we are a BPA registered team. We operate within the BPA Ops Manual. However, we also have Team SOPs. Those Team SOPs fall within the BPA Ops Manual, but they're rules set out within ourselves that may be slightly different to what other display teams have. So team training. It's annually in the USA. Everyone thinks we're over there having a good time, sipping pina coladas and getting suntans. If you look at it though, we're doing 100 jumps over a 3-week period. Realistically, we're going to get 12 to 13 days actual jumping. Trying to do 100 jumps in 12 to 13 days in a 100 by 50 meter arena, I tell you now, is quite tiring, and it takes a lot out on the guys, especially the guys that are trying to get display cleared for their first season. We really push the guys. We start them out in a small stack, couple of guys jumping out, and then building up to the full team trying to land in tight arenas. At any point during the display qualifying, if you land outside that arena, that could be you for the rest of the display season. If you don't pass display clearance on team training that year, you are not qualified to conduct any displays for the following 12 months. So you can tell there's a lot of pressure on the team to pass. We average about 100 jumps a guy per person, and it is really tough, from low shows all the way up to high shows. So then public displays themselves, we book between about 60 to 70 public displays nationally and internationally. However, we can't always do all the displays we're booked for. Of course, UK skydiving is subject to the weather. We normally do around 50 to 60. However, we will always give it a try. The thing is with the team, the way we train, if it is on the limits, we'll still be able to do the jump. And the limits are quite high. So we try and get as many in as we can. Obviously, we do stadiums, nights, and water landings. So one of my favourite displays is a night display. But lots of people out there don't know that we can actually do water displays as well. And national and international arenas. Predominantly, a lot of our jumps are within the UK, but we also do international displays throughout the season as well. So the display format itself, it's broken down into 2 parts. You've got the jump team and the ground crew. Both parts can't operate without each other, and they have to work closely throughout. The jump team's broken down to the JM, camera, flag jumpers, and CRW. If you don't know what CRW stands for, it's canopy relative work or canopy formation. The ground crew itself, split down into 2 parts, commentary and DZ control. Commentary is a really important job on the team, and it can be quite scary for a new guy who's just joined. Some of the events we go to, there could be 80 to 100,000 people listen to him deliver a commentary. The thing is, with a commentary, you can have the best display in the world, but with a poor commentary, it just makes the whole thing look terrible. And then DZ control. So much pressure is put on the DZ control itself. He's normally an A or B licensed skydiver. He's been on the team for probably less than 12 months, and he's the guy that tells the jump team, you are good to jump, clear drop. Once he's given clear drop, there is no going back, because on the jump team, once we get that, the radio is turned off, it's put away, and we're jumping out that aircraft. It's his responsibility to ensure that the arena we're jumping into is within the rules set out in the BPA Ops Manual, and it is safe for us to jump. And luckily, we've had a great ground crew over the past few years, and we haven't had any incidences where we've had an issue with that. Like I said there, the TL holds the overall risk, but the JM coordinates the jump team and ground crew. Throughout the jump itself, until we exit the aircraft, we have constant communications with the ground crew to give them an update of what we're doing, okay, and where we are. And like I said there, DZ control gives the clearance to jump. The display format itself, we have 3 displays. We have a low show, we have a mid, and we have a high show. A low show starts from 1,500 feet to 2,500 feet. Some of you may not know this, but we will free fall out of an aircraft from 1,500 feet in 20-knot winds. There are tolerances. A lot of people here look at us and think, you're going to take that rig at 1,500 feet. Yes, we do. We take the Sabres out at 1,500 feet, and they're Sabre 2s, and they do open in time. It's a hop and pop, and it's a stack out. Normally, the stack will be the JM. He sets the landing pattern. He always jumps first. Then it'll be the crew guys, and then followed by the flags. Flag jumping is something that if you haven't done before, there is more that goes into it than meets the eye. A lot of people think you just get a flag out and you land easy. When you get the flags out that we use, they start from 200 feet going up to 5,000 square feet. A 200-foot flag hanging at the bottom of a jumper dramatically changes the aerodynamics of that canopy. A guy on his first year in the display season getting out at 1,500 foot in a 20-knot wind, he's got to make the call whether or not to get that flag out. And because of the training that we do, we get it right. Then we have the mid-show, 2,500 to 5,000 feet. The JM and the flag jumpers will try and launch something. We do launch four-ways from about 3,000 feet, which are quite interesting, trying to track on the hill. But yeah, we'll launch something, and then it will be followed by the crew. The crew will pull high so that they can set up their canopy formation. And then finally, the high show. We may get only a couple of these throughout the season, simply because of the weather. A high show for us is anything from 5,000 feet to 10,000 feet, and we will launch a funky Red Devil formation. I'm sure some of you may have seen videos in the past. But we'll launch the formation, we'll have swoopers come down. Predominantly, we're doing that to get some footage throughout the year to use on our end-of-team video. However, the separation, when everyone tracks off at whatever height you guys decide to track off at, is slightly different to how we do it. At whatever altitude we've decided that we're going to break off, the flag jumpers and JM will break off. However, the crew team will deploy high. The way the crew team deploys is probably something that CIs would pull their hair out if they've seen. They will literally pull in place right next to each other. This is so that when their canopy's open, they can create that canopy formation straight away. It's a really niche skill that the team really trains hard to do, and it's quite impressive when you see it on camera. So, if we can just turn the camera off. I was hoping that was going to get a few giggles. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many jumps you've got, how much training you do, anyone can get it wrong. And we'll hold our hands up. We don't always get it right on some of the displays. That's a few of our outtakes there. No Red Devils were hurt, I'm sure. Lee nearly drowned those you've seen at the end. But yeah, at the end of the day, you've got the human factor. Skydiving is a dangerous sport, and what we do in display jumping is obviously incredibly dangerous, and sometimes it can go wrong. However, we get it right most of the time. So I don't know whether you know this, we do conduct tandems throughout the year. We do about 400 of them, and we have two great locations. We use Old Sarum, guys at the back, and then we have Skydive Langer. Thanks to those two drop zones, they enable us to perform the tandems throughout the year. What do we do on the tandems? Well, it's a bit of income generation, but it's also recruiting as well. Back in the days, before health and safety, helicopters used to go to military helicopters used to go to school, a tank used to turn up and used to be able to have a ride in it and fire a gun. Unfortunately now, with the realms of health and safety, it's becoming less and less available to do something with the military. What we like is the fact that we can take any civilian out there, as long as they're medically fit enough to do it, and we can take them on a skydive with us. We obviously do a lot of VIPs throughout the year, whether it be members of parliament, royal family, celebrities, and we conduct our skydives, like I said, in the two locations spoke about. My favourite tandem, though, that I suppose we say privileged to do, is taking World War II veterans. The guy there you see on the left, he was a World War II veteran. The last time he jumped was into Arnhem. He got shot on the way down and then got captured by the Germans. It's like a real honour for us to be able to take these guys on a tandem. He was 96 when he did that. So for anyone who thinks about getting a tandem for a member of their family, they say, no, I'm too old. That guy was 96. There's no getting away from it. Sponsorship. You may see on our jumpsuits that we have a few different sponsors. There are 6 main sponsors up there, but we have 12 sponsors overall in the team. What they provide is equipment and financial sponsorship. They are subject to Ministry of Defence contracts. So they have to be a certain criteria. However, what they do is they give us income generation to be able to do some of the stunts that you see on the videos, but also they provide equipment to us. The kit I'm wearing now, 511 equipment, and some of the helmets you see, which were on the stand, Gentex Obstacle helmets. Why would they sponsor the team? Well, in 2017, the team was seen by 28 million people, and we have an advertising value of £600,000 per year. With that comes public relations. A lot of the videos and stuff, or if you see us jump, it's all sky related, but we do a lot of ground stuff as well. If we can get out there on the ground, not necessarily jumping, but still talking to members of the public, then we do. And the main thing is we like to try and help people around the country that might necessarily not be able to get the exposure that they want. And a lot of that is charity exposure. Some charities, especially the smaller ones, really struggle to get exposure for the cause that they're trying to raise money for. If they come and speak to us, we can possibly give them a media stream to income generate for the organisation they're trying to raise money for. Charitable donations, it can be from a sign poster to a baseball cap to a tandem skydive. We get a lot of requests throughout the year. We always try and say yes to everyone. If we can give something to a chosen charity and they can use that to raise money, then we're always happy to help. Civil engagement. One of the sort of most humbling experiences I've had on the team is if you see here on the left, we went to the Teenage Cancer Ward in Bristol Hospital, spent the morning with some teenage cancer patients, and then in the afternoon we went to the Children's Ward at Bristol's Children's Hospital. It was really humbling. I like to think that when we went there, we made their day hopefully just a little bit better, and we also gave them some great exposure to raise some money for their chosen charities. And then finally, social media, as you see there. Social media is such an important thing nowadays that we push a lot of our media content before a jump, so a week out, the Red Devils are going to be here, and then post-jump, we try and get it out within an hour or 2 hours, this is what we did at the jump. Get it sharing, get it liked by as many people as we can. And then leave. Yeah, there's me passed out on the right. We work a busy year. Yes, we are full-time, and you think that all we do is jump, but there's a lot that goes into the job itself. We start in January, we have our pre-season training February, March, and then the season starts in April. From April to November, we are pretty much working every single weekend. We try and maybe take a Monday off if we can, but sometimes that's not possible. We take all our leave at the end of the year. 6 weeks leave, starts December, finishes in January, and that's what the guys do. The guys with families and kids, sometimes they do struggle to see their kids over the weekend. However, the guys love being on the team, and it's a personal sacrifice that they make to be a Red Devil. So becoming a Red Devil. Right, recognise this guy. I deliberately cut the end of the video out because the instructor had to deploy for me. Yeah. So you've got to start somewhere, like myself. Things haven't really improved since then. So how do you become a Red Devil? First of all, you've got to join the army, and more importantly, you have to join the parachute regiment. After joining the parachute regiment, you have to have conducted AFF training. Now, what are we looking for? Are we looking for Mr. Super Swooper, or are we looking for a Mr. A license? Well, the answer is we're looking for someone that's got potential. We will take an A license skydiver that has 20 jumps over someone that has 300 jumps. After conducting AFF, you then have to do Red Devil team selection, and then hopefully you pass and become a Red Devil. The selection itself is run annually, and it's spread over 2 weeks. We get the guys down. We do look at skydiving ability, but more importantly, we look at them as a person. Do we look at that person, and is that someone that is going to be able to be a future Red Devil? And if it is, we are happy to then invest not just the money, but the time it takes to become a display jumper. And display clearance is incredibly difficult on the team. It takes the average Red Devil 2 years to become display qualified. However, we give them 3 years. If after 3 years they don't pass display clearance, then unfortunately they return to unit. And that does happen occasionally. Where do we recruit from? Well, we recruit across all 3 battalions, 1, 2 and 3 para, but now we also recruit from our reserve battalion, the 4th battalion. We take the guys on and then hopefully they pass and they become a Red Devil. So my first season on the team. So like I alluded to before, I did AFF in Seville, Spain, had a great time, and then I was your weekend fun jumper. There's some guys here that I used to jump with at Peterlee on the weekends. It was then my former AFF instructor, a guy called Bryn, who gave me my first opportunity to start flying camera, and that was my first taste at becoming like a commercial skydiver as such. I started flying camera for Skydive St. George and Peterlee, and that's where I started to get my jump numbers up. I then came to the team in 2016, like I said, and I thought, yeah, I was a relatively good jumper. I had about 400 jumps under my belt. I sort of knew what I was doing. I had no clue. I came to the team, and there's a guy, some of you probably know him, Lee Crudgington, and he gave me a quite frank and honest debrief about my parachuting ability. Took me back to square one, and I had to sort of relearn everything. My canopy handling was pretty atrocious at the time. I had no idea about the wind line and the wind cone and all this other stuff. And it was a steep learning curve. And we expect that. When a guy comes to the team, we're not expecting someone to know everything about skydiving. However, we want to see that curve, that skydiving progression go like that, because we haven't got the time to keep retraining the same person. So I came to the team, did team selection, luckily passed in my first year, and then started my display season. I did 43 public displays last year, some really great ones. I think for the atmosphere, it was Battle of the Proms, which there was about 25,000 people there. But I think for the views was Bournemouth Air Show. It was my first night display onto a beach over Bournemouth, and it's things like that that will stay with you for the rest of your life. In 12 months on the team, I conducted over 500 jumps, which is quite a lot in a 12-month period, and my personal skydiving ability has gone massively up. And the team doesn't give you these skills as such. They give you the opportunity to learn the new skills. You get out of it what you put into it. I worked quite hard last year, and luckily I had guys on the team that were going to take their own time, that they could have spent with their families, and they spent it with me and some of the other newer Red Devils, and really brought us on quite quickly. So, I'm forever grateful to them. What have I got looking forward to? Well, I've got the 2018 season, and hopefully it was as much fun as the 2017 season. There's some contact details up there. If you do have any questions that you can't think of now, contact me on any of those numbers there. If you have anything to do with display parachuting itself, or you want to set up your own display team, then please feel free to contact the team, and we'll try and help you as best we can. Well, thank you very much for listening to me. Thanks for not heckling me too much, and thanks for not throwing any sharp objects at me while I was up here.